Before we jump into today's upload, I just want to say today's upload is a big reason why I play my part in help finding the truth. Remember, we cannot individually find the truth. We cannot individually solve this puzzle. But the reason why I choose to put my part in is because of today's experiences and the last 13 minutes of today's upload. Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have some terrifying encounters from my neck of the woods. Now, people hear New York and they think city. That is, people who aren't familiar with my great state. But where I live, in the northern Adirondacks, we have Dogman, we have Bigfoot, we have aquatic monsters in Lake Champlain. I mean, they filmed an entire season of finding Bigfoot, even though they're not allowed back in my area after that. But I've got some terrifying encounters to share with you all out of my home state. Actually, well, my home county and the counties surrounding. So before we do that, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. Merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost you a cent. Click the like button. It takes 1 second. And please leave a comment, because all of these things, they really do help and they definitely matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload, shall we? Also, really quick, I have been working on an upload for 3 days, which will be out tomorrow morning. Put it this way. This upload is going to really show everyone that without a shadow of a doubt, Dogman, Bigfoot, exists. There's a lot of channels out on YouTube right now. A lot of channels that, will produce multiple park ranger stories, multiple encounters that are creepypasta related, unfortunately. And unfortunately, a lot of people buy it. Well, tomorrow you're going to see what the real research and real proof is. Like I said, I've been working on this for 3 days. I've been researching for long before I had this channel. And if this channel ever stops being a channel, I will continue to research because it's a passion. It's not just a claim to fame like most. Let's get into it. Today's first encounter, Washington County, New York, January 1981. Whitehall is a small town with little to do for teenagers. Driving all the back roads was one of the pastimes of choice. Late one night, a girlfriend and I had driven out to East Bay and stopped and talked for a while. Just to interrupt there, it is absolutely beautiful there. It is just this secluded dirt road. I know right where East Bay, right where they're talking about. It is wicked, wicked cool. Sorry. After a few moments spent parking near the bridge, I saw what looked like a man walking across a marshy area to our left. The distance, I'm assuming, was about 200 to 300 yards. This was gauged by seeing a fence line at the distance. At the time, my tested vision was 2010. We both watched this man approach the fence line. He cleared it without stopping, simply stepped over it as if it was a low stool. Knowing that the snow was not that deep or that hard to support a man of his apparent size, and that it was highly unlikely for anyone to be out in the marsh at that time of night, I stepped out of the car to get a better look. As soon as I had gotten out of the car, the man changed course and began heading straight toward us. I closed the car door to cancel the interior light and prevent showing my location. At this point, the man broke into a run. His speed was incredible. He closed the distance between us very quickly. My girlfriend was screaming for me to get back into the car at this point. I got back into the car, and as she drove over the bridge into NYS, as we went, I looked back behind us and saw that we were being pursued. Although we were building a gap, as soon as we returned to the hard top, it broke off pursuit and ran back into the forest near the bridge. We returned to town and never spoke of this incident to anyone other than 2 trusted friends. I've since told friends and relatives that I saw something out there, but couldn't say that it was an animal I had ever seen, nor could I say it was a man. I should add that at the time I had spent 16 years working and playing outdoors. I had encountered all the major predators in our areas, knew their habitats. I knew what I did not mistake an animal for a humanoid creature that night. I will further add that I am now a natural resource scientist with 16 years of experience studying and reporting information based on my observations and analysis. I still can't state with precision what I saw that night. Today's second encounter, Hamilton County, New York, May 1999. I grew up camping in the central portion of the Adirondack Mountains, Indian and Louis Lake, between to be exact. With that said, I have been going there for 25 years and am very familiar with all of the sights and sounds. My incident happened a few years ago in the spring of '99. I was camping the last week of May with one of my dogs on the south side of Louis Lake. I think there were maybe a total of 5 camps being used. One of the nights, around 10 p.m., I heard a loud and unfamiliar cry/scream come from the north side of the lake. I sat there in silence with my dog, almost in shock because I had never heard anything like this before. It went on with a series of screams for about 10 seconds. It was not a bear, not a moose. I don't know. It made me a bit uneasy, as I could not place the sound. It was not from any camper either, as there were only a handful and were all on the same side of the lake as myself. I just went to a website today and listened to some sound clips available for Bigfoot. The sound I heard was almost exactly what those clips have. Let's break it up a little bit. I'm writing from Durham, North Carolina. I'm not going to assume that what I saw was an actual cryptid, but I've spent nearly 4 hours trying to figure out what it could have been. And I've only come up with, well, nothing except for a moose. And this was way too south to have been a moose. It was probably 100 feet ahead of me, loping out of the woods like a dog would lope through deep snow. It was almost black in color, except for its enormous reflective eyes that were the size of dinner plates glowing back at me. It had thin legs like a deer, but was easily twice my size, covered in long, matted fur. It had the face of a dog and a tail that extended probably 2 feet behind me. It almost looked like it was grimacing as it moved, like I caught it when it was vulnerable. It didn't slow down through loping the full width of the street, and maybe 5 hops before disappearing among the trees. I texted my neighbor, and he joked it was a dog-elope. But honestly, I just want to know if anyone else had seen anything like this. A little more info. It was definitely not a moose. I don't think it was an elk. It wasn't a cow or a beefalo. For those wondering, it had no antlers. The head was distinctly canine. It was in the backwoods near Durham Chapel Hill Road, specifically. Today's fourth encounter. Hamilton County, New York, September 2010. My friend and I finished preparing for a big outdoor event, and we were sitting outside of his home. It was around 11 at night, and his wife and dog had gone inside for the evening. Across the road from his house, there's a large swamp that goes up a small mountain. Our talk was cut short by an odd scream about 75 yards into the swamp on the right at ground level. I asked my friend, an avid hunter, what animal screams like that. He didn't know, but we talked that maybe it could have been an owl or a fisher. A few moments later, in the woods on our side of the road, a large animal broke a lot of dead branches all at once. It wasn't running, but it seemed to have just turned around in one location. A minute or two later, 3 owls hooted between themselves at the treetop level in the woods behind the house. The owls seemed to have been about 50 feet apart. We commented about this sudden weird activity when something came from the woods and landed in his yard behind us. We were still facing the road and didn't see the object, but I assumed it was something around the size of a baseball. He doesn't have manicured lawns, so it would have been impossible to know exactly what it was. I've thought about this incident for a couple of months and could write it off. The first 3 encounters that evening, but the object landing in the yard made this event too hard to ignore. My friend was puzzled as I was. He lives where people are few and far between. Today's 5th encounter, Washington County, New York, September 2018. We received a text from a friend at about 10 p.m. He needed vehicle assistance. As I was driving eastbound toward Vermont on US 4, I noticed a log on the side of the road where the white line is. Then I noticed a second log next to the other. I then realized it was a black-haired creature approximately 6 feet tall with 3-foot wide shoulders. No neck and hair from the head went down to its shoulders. I only saw the back of this creature. I didn't see its face or the front. As I approached, I saw it step over the side railing about 3 feet high with little effort and descend into the woods towards the high power line. I had to continue to assist my friend. The next day, I contacted local Whitehall Bigfoot researcher Paul Bartholomew, who visited the site with the witness and took plaster casts, 2 footprints on the side of the road. Also, we noticed small trees pushed aside to form a small tunnel in the woods. A solar farm across the road. Bigfoot headed south toward the pole lines through the woods. Now, this encounter was documented in my local newspaper called the Post-Star. Maybe once a year we'll have a encounter that makes it to the paper. Wow. I don't know how they decide what encounter would go in the paper. Chances are they know somebody at the newspaper or something. But anyway, I was working customer service in the circulation department right under the circ director one year. And I remember having 3 to 4 encounters come in in 1 year. It was the craziest thing. And we printed all 3. It was pretty interesting. So yeah, in Whitehall, next to Fort Anne, where they have a once a year kind of like a Bigfoot fest. It's very, very cool. A lot of shops, a lot of great people, books, local researchers, amateur researchers. Well, how do you really become a professional researcher in this field? You're not, I don't think, but I think we're all amateur researchers, no matter what or who we are, to be honest. So, but it's a really cool time. And if you ever get a chance, Google it, the Fort Anne / Whitehall Bigfoot Fest. It's in the summer. And if you ever get a chance, stop up. Email me. I'll come and hang out. All right, back to the encounters. Today's 6th encounter, Washington County, New York, July 2009. While camping in Lake Luzerne, Fourth Lake area, we heard several hoot whoops on July 24th at approximately 2 in the morning. Prior to hearing the whoops, I heard something large walking approximately 30 feet away from our camp. A distinctive crackling noise was made as if something large either broke or stepped on a large branch. These vocalizations were between 2 and possibly a third animal. Having heard moving away from our area, I almost wonder if they were herding prey for hunting purposes. Approximately 2 hours later, I heard them again as they moved back into our area. I've heard these noises before, and I immediately recognized the sound as they were so unique. There were 7 people in our tent, 4 teenage girls, my wife, myself, and our 10-month-old son. We all heard them, and needless to say, the girls and my wife were just a little startled. Today's 7th encounter, Warren County, New York. This one is interesting because to get to where these people are talking about, you have a catwalk. Well, first you go into the village of Lake George. You go to the back side of the village. There's a small base of a mountain. You go for a little walk, and the catwalk goes across a 6-lane highway. 3 lanes one way, 3 lanes the other. As you go across it, and then down into the other side where it's just deep wilderness, you then go through a, I guess they're called culverts. It's kind of like a little tunnel, and you don't crawl. It's like 7 feet tall, so you can walk standing straight up, and it's a kind of a wash bed, and you're on Prospect Mountain. Now, back in the early 1800s, the elite of New York's city's socialites would come up here, and there was a large hotel on the top of the mountain, and there was a tramway that used to go up and down it. And yeah, it was very cool, but there's been tons of sightings of stuff here. I don't know how many are real, because in this location, and a lot of the sightings are from teenagers partying, having fires and drinking and whatnot. But it's a very creepy place, even in the daytime. So, on with the encounter. This happened in the summer, somewhere between 1980 and 1982. My then husband and I loved to hike. We lived in Lake George, New York, and we were aware of the Rangers Road up the back of Prospect Mountain. We foolishly figured it would be an hour up and an hour back, and we'd be home for supper, and didn't take a flashlight. It took 2 hours up, and the sun was beginning to wane. Now, my husband had a habit of walking very fast, sometimes out of my sight, and I kept yelling, almost crying, wait for me. As it got near dusk, the road was darker and darker, and I finally grabbed and held onto his arm so I wouldn't be left alone or behind. Then we heard something big crunching up against the ground just off the road in the woods beside us, and following along with us. If we stopped, it stopped. I couldn't tell if it was one or more, but I think just one. All the way down the mountain until we got to where the road kind of levels out for at least an hour or more, that thing was in the woods following us. My husband figured it was a deer or a bear, but would those animals do that? Then recently, when I read that teens on the bike trail near French Mountain thought they saw something in 81 or 82, I began to wonder. The bike trail goes a long ways, following Route 9 into Lake George, and Prospect Mountain is on the other side of Route 9, not many miles away. It startled after I was yelling and crying for my husband to wait and stay with me, not to walk ahead. Today's 8th encounter. Hello, I live in Northeast Ohio, and the area I'm going to tell you about is the country township. There's one blinking traffic light and lots of woods, farms, and lakes. Every night I would take my granddaughter, who is 9 years old, for a ride down all the back roads to see if we could spot some deer. One night we were coming down a road with no homes, as it was with most of the roads in this area. We were coming up on a part of the road that had a back end of Christmas tree farm on the right with deep woods and a creek on the left. We were driving slow so we could see deer, if there were any there, since it was a common place to see them. All of a sudden, from out of the trees on the left, a huge, this thing was a good 7 to 8 feet long, wolf-like creature came hopping across the road, not 20 feet in front of us. I say hopping because it ran so awkwardly, like it didn't normally move on 4 legs. Like if you or I got on our hands and feet and tried to run. There was something so odd about its back legs. The best way I can describe it is almost like it had an extra bone or a joint to them. I was stopped and staring in disbelief at this point, and my granddaughter said, "Grammy, what is that?" Like I said, it was long, black fur, thin, but long-legged. Its chest was huge, like a pit bull's, only much bigger. Its tongue was hanging to one side. I didn't notice any teeth, nor did I recall a tail. I was so intent on those back legs. It loped, but pretty fast, across the road and disappeared into the woods. I know it was not a coyote, and there have been no wolves in this area. Now, I'm a country girl. The woods and the beasts in them have never given me any concern. But watching this thing move across the road gave me such a feeling of dread. It actually left me with a kind of sick feeling. I have to add that this area is a hot spot for Bigfoot sightings. They go back for decades. The house we lived in was surrounded by woods, and a railroad track ran through them behind it, about a mile back. There was an old Indian burial mound that only a handful of old-timers knew about. Past this was a Bigfoot habitat or hunting area. I say that because they had built an enormous corral out of 20 to 30-foot trees, all locked within each other in a semicircle. It was marked with a huge X made of giant trees. The back of this area butted up against the very back edge of one of the lakes. There are at least 3 large lakes that are all connected, and I believe that was how they traveled between the areas. One winter, after a big snow, I had left work and went to my friend's to stay the night. At 6 in the morning, my daughter, who was 16 years old at the time, called and told me I needed to come home and now to see something. She wouldn't say why, and I had to get there fast. When I got home, she said our dogs, who were in a fenced-off area in the back of the house, had started going crazy that night. She looked out her window and on the second floor, but didn't see anything, and the way the pups were carrying on, she was too scared to go outside. Then she showed me the footprints. At the base of a huge catalpa tree, was the first one, then another about 6 feet from that. It continued like that for a ways, and then it turned and walked to the dog fence. Here the prints sort of shuffled back and forth, and then they continued through the yard and across the road into the woods, getting even further apart as it went. These prints had toes. They were not that long, maybe 8 inches, and they were narrow at the heel, slightly wider at the top. There were also very obvious claw prints. Bigfoot, Dogman, I don't know. But whatever it was, walked with 2 legs. One last thing, I took my granddaughter and grandson for a drive around the lake one night. We had stopped because a deer went tearing across the road. It was not rut season, and I was wondering what scared them, when all of a sudden my granddaughter grabbed my arm and said, "Grammy, go, go!" I looked at the spot where her eyes were focused, and there were 2 bright red spots about 10 feet up in the thick brush. I just looked at them, wondering what they might be. Then they blinked. That was that. I got the hell out of there. Today's 9th encounter, Warren County, New York, March 2006. I was hiking alone, 2 miles south of Sabbath Day Point, Lake George, just off Route 9. The date was March 31st, 2006. I was near a small body of water when I heard odd sounds about 300 yards away. The sounds were from a large creature. They were sing-song in pattern, and unlike anything I had ever heard. The creature appeared to be talking to itself, as there was only one creature. It didn't sound angry, and lasted for about a couple of minutes. The sound changed in pitch and fluctuation. I was not scared, but I did leave quickly. I have since studied sounds of coyote and found no similarities at all. There were no yelps, barks, or growls. I can't even duplicate the sounds. It was like nothing I had ever heard in these woods or elsewhere. My wife and I went back 2 weeks later and found no signs of anything out of the norm. Today's final encounter in the Adirondacks. Warren County, New York, spring of 1990. I believe this one to be a definite Dogman. My brother and I were canoeing on Lake George in New York State at about sunset. We headed south for 10 minutes to an area known as Deer Leap. At the lake side, it is a boulder-strewn area with cliffs rising 600 feet above the shoreline. We used to jump off of that. Not 600 feet, like the 100 feet part. As we were beginning to come on to the area, we saw something standing on the shore. It was brownish in color, standing straight up with its arms at its side. It was about the size of a small man, very thin. Its body was facing south, looking down the shoreline, when it suddenly turned its head directly towards us and looked very intently. We whispered to each other and watched it for a while as it watched us. We're 2 grown men paddling parallel to the shore and about 200 feet out, but we could not summon up the courage to get any closer. This thing had a strange look, almost like a crazy grin, like a giant lemur. The sun was now set as we continued to watch it in the shadows of the mountain, as it was standing next to an old dead pine tree. It turned and climbed sloth-like up the tree about 20 feet to the first and only large limb, and then into the crock of the branch. We paddled back around, and as we approached it again, it cocked its head directly at us. After a minute or so, it turned its face downward into its body, and became as if it was part of the tree, just a lump on the crock of the branch. You would not know if it was there unless you saw it move. I've been in this area all my life, and I've never seen anything like this, and have not seen it since. In my searchings, I have found references to a creature found in the woods of New Hampshire back in the 30s they called wood devil or stick man. The one thing in common is they were able to blend into trees to avoid being seen. Alright, really quick.
yes, these stickmen, Sasquatch can blend in, but so can't Dogman. And where he is talking about is very treacherous. There's large cliffs. And it's creepy back there. There's a tree swing down, and I honestly don't see a Sasquatch going to that area, just because it's a highly frequented place by teenagers during the summer. I know it's spring during this story, but I really 100% think this is a Dogman, a small juvenile, more than likely.
All right, guys, the last experience is mine. I know these creatures exist. I don't have to sit and come up with crazy ideas and this and that like other channels do. Find a creepypasta writer to help write them their experiences. I know these things exist, and I get sent experiences every day from you guys. But what I saw in 1994, what me and my friend saw, I know is real. And that's all that matters to me, because I know that they do exist. I know the people that have seen them know they exist. And it's kind of crazy because there's all these channels out there that aren't researchers. They're just claim to fame, looking for, the next big story. Yet, probably never even stepped foot in the woods. There are a lot of people. There are a couple channels out there that do. And I all commend them. Really do. Commend them. Because that's where the research is. It's going in the woods, looking at things. It's talking to you guys. It's getting your experiences. It's observing what is going on in locations that things just really aren't right. So, 1994, myself and 4 of my friends hanging out, listening to Biohazard, just chilling out in a cul-de-sac that houses are being built in. 6 minimum. All of a sudden we hear these yips. It almost sounded like, I guess the best way to describe it would be tormented hyenas mixed with like a wolf. The timbre of a wolf, throaty, but with that hyena yip too, if that makes any sense. I can't say that it sounded like a murdered woman, because I've never heard a murdered woman. But I heard this, and it didn't sound like a murdered woman. And what I saw most certainly didn't look like Underworld or Werewolf from London. What I saw was real. My friends and I are standing there, and the night was fine. I mean, it was crazy. It was amazing. And we hear these just tormented hyena screams with just a bass to it. Sounded like it was right from friggin' hell, to be honest with you. And then we started seeing these eyes. And the only light that was around was this dim, crappy orange glow from a street light that is just placed while, the buildings are getting built. And then after the houses are built and people buy these expensive houses, then the real street lights are put in. We're all in shock The girls, for some reason, scream vampire. I have no idea why. The only thing I can come up with is because vampire movies were big in the 90s. I'm not sure. My friend, the driver, is in the driver's seat already. The girl's just in the car. When whatever these things were at the time, because we didn't know what they were at the time, were in front of us in the woods, probably 20 feet into the tree line, if that. But you could see this glow, this internal glow, because there's no way that light was the light was reflecting off of these eyes, because it couldn't reflect. I mean, you could barely see a speck of dirt with this light. It was that freaking garbage. I'm standing on the passenger side right in front of the light of the car. My friend, get in the car, Jeff. I'm not even going to use the accent because it's not funny. He's Czechoslovakian, so just get in the car. And I get in the car. And we leave. We peel out. We're in an old Cutlass Caprice Classic, actually. It was a Caprice Classic. It was a Chevy Caprice Classic. It was a friggin' land yacht. Light blue. And he punched it. And for being, a heavy car, it really hauled ass for back then. You know what I mean? We get to the end of the road, and it was like a split second from where we were to the end of the road, and we were turning. And whatever was in the woods, one of them met us at the edge of that road. I have no idea how it moved through those woods so fast, because when they cleared that road out, what they did was they pushed all that timber, all that brush, all that just debris right into that tree line. So it was just full of debris, fallen logs, brush, just garbage, just not garbage, but briars, just a thicket of mess. I have no idea how that thing got there that quick. And from that day forth, that one piece of my experience has messed with my head the most. I looked at it. It looked like it shouldn't have been on this planet. Its legs were weird. It did have a snout, but it was not your atypical werewolf of London snout. Hollywood. Didn't look like Arnold Schwarzenegger either, but it was most certainly strong. It looked like it could just... And it stood there and just looked at the car. Like, I could have got you at any time. We left. We go back the next day, me and my buddy. We're in his dad's truck. Because that's how young we were. I was 17. I couldn't drive after 9. The kid that was driving was 18. So we go back and we're looking. I'm looking for tracks. I want to find something. I'm like, what the hell was that? The foreman of the place, because there had been like a couple subdivisions that were being built, people had been stealing wood and tools and crap like that, and he came over like real like defensive, because it's his building lot, it's his area. He runs and he doesn't want his crap stolen, so he's no idea who these two kids are. What are you guys doing? And first thing that came to my mind, we're looking for my buddy's dog. And he stops and he looks at us and he goes, last night, before we were buttoning up, we heard what sounded like a whole ton of dog out in the back behind the woods fighting. Might have been one of your dogs tangling up with a coyote, he said. But had this weird look on his face and walked away. And the kid that was driving never spoke to us four after that, until I ran into him at a grocery store 2 years ago. And he tells me the rest of what he saw. He'd been in the car. He was doing the tunes and hanging out. And he had his door open. Out of his peripheral, he caught something down by that orange light. Cross the road right before that high-pitched scream came from. 2 quadruped dog-like creatures cross the road and get into this little patch of woods. It's not that big. This little patch of woods was, you got the main road and then the road we were on, and just this kind of like semicircle of woods with, 60, 70 feet deep, if that, to the next road. Nothing. These things targeted us. By the grace of God, we were able to get out of there. Because if those two had kept us more occupied, or if those creatures in front of us kept us more occupied, I really honestly think if the girls hadn't jumped in the car and freaked out, if it was just me, my friend, and then my other buddy who was driving, we'd probably be dead, because we would all stood there and been like, what is that? Like guys do. Idiots. But the second they got in the car and screamed, we need to leave, la la la, I think that's what saved our lives that night. I've never really told this story like this, because to me, I try to just make light of it sometimes. But I'm sick and tired of people believing creepypastas are real. These things are friggin' real. These things are out there. They're killing machines. I've talked to hundreds of people, interviewing them, privately talking to them. And you can hear the anger, you can hear the confusion in their voice. Once you've seen one of these things, it changes you. Not for the better and not for the worse, but it changes you. If I could turn back the time and not be there, would I? No. Because I think seeing what I saw that night has put me on a mission, has put me on a road to share information, to help solve the puzzle. Notice I didn't say I want to solve the puzzle myself. I want to help solve the puzzle, because I can't do it on my own. No one can solve this puzzle on their own. We all need to be a part of that puzzle to solve it. Goddamn thing's too big to solve, to be honest with you. And then you've got all these little BS things getting put in, fake videos, fake stories, fake this, fake that, and it makes it harder. And that's what really is just upsetting me to no end. We need the truth, and that's all that matters anymore. With that, I'm ending this. Stay safe, everyone. Stay healthy. May the Great Spirit watch over us all. May He guide us down the path we call life. Tomorrow's upload. Y'all see. Be safe, guys.